how should a company decide on what is an effective random testing rate? So, as Ian just said, we've got policy, educate, deter to detect. So here at D.tec, we have a fully encompassing solution that works off that model of policy, educate, deter, detect. Each part has a significant role to play within an effective anti-drug and alcohol solution. So obviously, first and foremost, which we kind of touched on very briefly, is the policy. So it's obviously there to inform your employees that these are the rules of your workplace. And obviously, it doesn't matter what their personal views are, they're there to work. These rules are based on legislation, as well as legally defensible European workplace drug testing guidelines. And obviously, using our company's nearly 25 years industry-specific experience, we aim to work with you to advise on any policy amendments or alterations. So first and foremost, your policy should be firm and flexible where necessary, and it should be clear for everyone involved. So we believe that the policy should be adapting the KISS structure, which is keep it simple. Okay, you're not trying to show how elaborate you can talk. It's about making sure everyone understands the roles within the workplace. So then we move on to education. So obviously this is where we communicate with staff to help them understand why the company have these rules in the first place, and also help to create a better company buy-in from your employees. You know, why should they be abiding by these rules, and help them understand that. So it's crucial that employees know how dangerous it is for themselves and others around them to carry out their job whilst they're impaired. So this communication can come from things like induction training, toolbox talks, refresher sessions, as well as many free resources like Ask Frank, Drink Aware. There's lots of good government stuff out there. And then we move on to obviously the deterrent. So the deterrent is the company's disciplinary policy and the consequences that any employee will face for breaking the rules. Okay, so the deterrent needs to be omnipresent. It's not just the site that's located 50 miles up the road, it's on every site. And it's important that your employees have understood why the rules are there in the first place, like we said, but also that if they're broken, disciplinary action will be taken against them. And then finally, we have the last piece of the puzzle, which is obviously detection. So we're strong believers that it's not about catching people. We're there to protect the innocent majority and highlight the not so innocent minority to provide a safe workplace. So detection is about monitoring if your education and deterrent is successful and sufficient in the first place. So we obviously provide the world's best equipment and train your staff to be able to perform them on site. Anyone who fails the screening gives a confirmation sample, the result of which is then fed through your disciplinary procedure. So the confirmation is legally defensible and keeps your company away from time-consuming and expensive no-win, no-fee lawyers, as well as protecting your company from arbitration. So to best comply with the model that we have, policy, educate, deter, detect, we recommend that the detection portion of the solution is carried out as follows. So every new starter is tested to understand you're serious. They know that the company is setting out their ethos from the start and getting good buy-in. Then every incident is tested to see, as I've already said, if drugs or alcohol was a contributing factor. And then finally, we strongly recommend that you create a more effective deterrent by using random screening. So I guess my question is, moving on from that, is regardless of what you've kind of done previously or what you're currently doing within your organisations, how often in years would you wish to have your employee randomly screened? So is it once every 10 years, once every 2 or 3 years? Obviously, hearing a lot of the things we've just spoken about, is it once every year? What are your thoughts? And I'll come to you first, Paul, obviously after your points on the last agenda.
I suppose it's a hard one to answer. I don't know. I suppose it can depend and also on their role, and I suppose what the numbers telling us. I mean, when I see some of these scary numbers now, and I'm thinking, you know, is it something we should be doing annually? You know, it's
annually is a good figure, but you brought up a good point. Maybe you have to do the risk assessment depending on the functionality of the person.
I know we're specifically talking road at the moment, but it's all still key because we've got people operating machinery and stuff. So we need to do a bit of an assessment and a bit of a and also understand how, you know, if it's something that we can simply do, or, you know, is it something we can do very easily annually? So why wouldn't we? Do you know what I mean? So we need to sort of really have a bit of thought around this and do a bit of an assessment and understand it a bit better, given the fact that we are, we're not active. We haven't got an active policy at all at the moment.
Christine, do you have an idea about what you would think would be? Do you think a year is too much? Do you think 10 years is too little? Would you have a view?
I'd say at least twice a year.
Twice a year. I must say, one of the biggest issues Dan and my other colleagues have when we're talking to a customer, and they start with, oh, well, 10% sounds good. Now, 10% actually means you're testing 10 in 100 once a year. So that's every 10 years. Now, we've just discussed the logic of testing around once every year or once every half a year. I do like the specificity to specify the actual risk of that particular person. Some companies decide that actually they want to make it even for everybody, but moving away from this old hat idea of 10% a year, which was prevalent and was, I suppose, sufficient 20 years ago. It isn't your level best now. That's the main issue that we've got. So I am glad to hear that you have that view, that you would analyze it, you would decide some people maybe once a year, some people maybe every couple of years. That's a great way to look at it with an open mind. Make a risk assessment, think about how often you want it, then do the maths into the percentage.
I think as well, safety critical workers are drivers are safety critical workers, because obviously the executive function of the brain is impacted by drugs and alcohol and medication. So for me, I stick drivers in the same camp as machine operators or engineers. They're safety critical workers. And though that's the population I have more interest in, though we also have company car drivers, and that's not a safety critical role, but they're on the road.
Yeah, you've heard what Paul will do to them.
Ian, can I come in?
Yes.
I think it's critical that businesses need to be pretty open-minded and to actually investigate their risk and do that risk assessment. Absolutely essential, because I think a lot of businesses that I deal with, and I've got a couple of customers that have actually delivered some of our drink and drug driving courses to machine operators. They build and construct metal skips. It's one of the best training courses that they've received. And I don't sometimes think about the forklift drivers driving around the depots and all the associated bits of machinery that these guys use. And every business is different. And no one size fits all, which is important to undertake a risk audit, where the individual businesses' risks lie, the demographic of their drivers. So there's a whole raft of things that need to be taken into account. And a lot of the businesses that I deal with, they don't have one person who's always dedicated to dealing with the drivers. It's just part of their day job. They don't focus on it all the time. And businesses are crying out for help. And basically, Andy and TTC, can you take this pain away from me and just help me bring the policy to life? Because the policy has to be living and breathing and has to be effective. Otherwise, it's just not worth the paper it's written on.
I was asked to read one the other day, and it was rather lengthy. And for me to get bored with a policy is something phenomenal. There is not an employee on this planet that would read more than the third page of that. They would
less is more.
Yeah.
But we mentioned about ethos in this call. The culture of the organisation is critical, and that culture has to be driven down from the top directors in terms of how they behave, how they look after their staff, how they kind of treat them, their welfare. It's important, and I think there's an old age saying that most people only leave a job because of the manager, maybe not because of the job itself. Having well-motivated staff, get the balance between cost motivation of the staff, the welfare, and obviously the return on the overall investment.
You used the word culture. Paul Mountford mentioned to that when we were just having a chat before. Paul.
Yeah, we did, didn't we? And we spoke about it. It's about the aims of a policy and what you put into practice. It's not there to catch people out or to lose people jobs. It's there for them. They're going to benefit from what you're offering. It's not just them, that they can go away and share with their family and their friends. There's a lot of knowledge to learn. And it's a genuinely interesting topic when you speak to people. They're interested to know what police can and can't do, what their powers are, how drugs affect people. And so the ones I've done, the feedback has always been really, really positive. And a lot of people say it's the best thing they've ever done in the workplace, training-wise, because and what they didn't know. So it shouldn't be like pushing it uphill. I think when people, it will be welcomed if it's approached in the right way. If it's coming in as this sort of heavy-handed, you're going to do it this way or you're out.
But 20 years ago, more, it was pushing uphill all the way. Nobody wanted to know about it. I think most people, sensible people, realise it's an issue. They realise it's something most of their employees want to buy into this. They see it as a benefit to protecting their environment so they can go home at night safe.